Welcome to the Only Women Entrepreneurs podcast. It's also called O. Here we talk to powerful women in alternative careers who have forged their own paths in life and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Rosemary Cescolini, a former high school English teacher who left the education world in favor of manufacturing. For more than 30 years, I crafted custom handmade wood doors at Royal Door Limited, a family-owned and operated business. There we built thousands of products for celebrities, TV shows, blockbuster movies, and countless people around the world. Now I pioneer O, an organization focused on empowering and equipping aspiring women with the necessary tools for success in entrepreneurship and alternative careers. Join me as we talk to accomplished guests and discover the lessons they learned along their journey. Today, we have the distinct honor of speaking with a true trailblazer in the field of geology and mining, Melissa Ning. Melissa's journey is a testament to the power of passion, determination, and unwavering commitment. With over 15 years of experience in the mining industry, Melissa has not only shattered glass ceilings, but has also been a driving force for change and inclusivity in a traditionally male-dominated sector. Currently serving as the Chief Geologist at Cameco Corporation's McArthur River operation in northern Saskatchewan, Melissa is at the forefront of an industry that plays a critical role in our quest for clean, sustainable energy. Beyond her role as geologist, Melissa is deeply involved in initiatives that promote diversity and inclusion. She chairs Women in Mining Canada, an organization dedicated to creating a more inclusive culture within the mining sector. Her personal leadership philosophy is rooted in the belief that by supporting those around us, we can help them become better versions of themselves. So without further ado, welcome Melissa Ning to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Rosemary.
So, okay, let's start the episode by learning a little bit about Melissa Ning. Who are you? What is your past education and your work experience, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with our community?
No, absolutely. So my education, I have my undergrad in Earth and Atmospheric Sciences from the University of Alberta. Upon graduating there, oh, wow, it's been a while, 2007. Yeah, 2007. Around 2008, I got my first job in mining. That was with the company I'm currently with, actually, Cameco Corporation, at their Rabbit Lake operation. Was there for a good 8.5 years, had my 2 children while I was employed there. And then, unfortunately, the events of Fukushima kind of drove the price of uranium down, and that site kind of went into something we call care and maintenance, which is kind of a closure of operations. From there, I got picked up from different companies, kind of worked across North America in different commodities such as zinc and lead and gold, both in exploration and in mining. During that time, I also got my MBA from Athabasca University while I was still working through correspondence. And upon kind of completion of that MBA was around the time COVID kind of hit. So finding a job was a little more difficult, but was able to kind of get back into gold a bit over in Ontario. And from there, things with uranium started picking up again. Mm-hmm. And I heard about this position as the Chief Geologist for McArthur River back in 2001. Heard that they were starting up this operation again, so I kind of wanted to get on board, and the rest is a bit of history. I'm currently with them since the end of 2001. And my start with Women in Mining Canada kind of began around that 2020, just wanting to give back and towards all the women in this industry. Right. I guess I've had a very successful, what I consider a very successful career, and not too many barriers as being a woman in this industry, but I know that's not always the case. So it was just my opportunity to kind of give back to the community and to the industry that I love so much. So yeah, that's a brief background of everything.
Well, that sounds like an amazing start. So you have about 15 years of experience in the mining industry. What really inspired you to pursue this career path initially?
So I actually started university in engineering. When you're in high school and you're told, you're good in math and the sciences, usually your advisors are like engineering. And it made sense. My father's an engineer in the oil and gas. So I actually started in there. And then realized that it wasn't tapping into the creative side of my brain. And so I was kind of looking at different things, and geology ended up being one of those. And even so, in university in geology, it's a very vast discipline. You can do everything from, hydrogeology, geochemistry, like studying volcanoes out in Hawaii. And actually, most of my major was in something called mass movement. So like landslides, mudslides, those certain things. But then it was Diavik that actually had a diamond display or diamond museum in the University of Alberta.
Okay.
And, being from Alberta, it is all oil and gas. And so that kind of like sparked, oh, what's this thing called Canadian mining? And as I was doing research, just not realizing how big mining actually is in Canada, you look at all the different commodities that Canada produces or refines, and pretty much from coast to coast to coast, I think with the exception of PEI, I don't know if there's anything, maybe somebody could correct me if there is something to do with mining on PEI, but basically it is a big industry. And in particular, too, I got very interested in underground mining. So it was kind of that display that just, okay, what is this? And just really starting to now curve my education towards mining more so. And then, as soon as I kind of graduated, was fortunate enough to land a job right away in underground mining, and just absolutely fell in love with it. And this is where I belong, and this is where I've been for the past 15 years.
Well, that's incredible. I'm glad you shared that with us. So, for our younger audience that perhaps don't know the definition of a geologist, would you mind expanding on that for us?
Yeah, so geology, basically, we are the scientists of earth science. And as I kind of mentioned before, that is vast and expansive. We basically study the earth in many different aspects of it. We have like geophysicists that, when we're talking about earthquakes and things like that, or even planetary sciences. And when we first were bringing, rocks back from Mars, it was geologists who first studied those rocks. Geochemistry, like I said, volcanologists are all geologists. And then, of course, with mine geology, it is that study of kind of the rocks that are in place and how these minerals kind of become, how they are formed, and the extraction process that comes with that. So, very briefly and over-encompassing, it's the study of the earth and the earth sciences.
That sounds like there's a lot of opportunities that exist in geology, and I'm glad you shared that definition for them. So, what types of education do women need to pursue a career in your industry or in the trades in general?
So, with geology being vast, mining is just as vast. And again, people don't necessarily see mining as an option. There is a misconception with a lot of people. When I say mining, you picture pickaxes and coal miners with dust all over their face, right? But the industry is so much more than that. There's the operations side, which I'm in, and a lot of it is technology driven. It's a lot different than it ever used to be. Most of the stuff I deal with is computer 3D software. A lot of the monitoring systems we do is technology based. And, we even talk about underground drones and things like that. There's major automation. On the other side, the other services in mining, so you have your corporate offices and everybody associated with that. You have your assisting services, so consultants, contractors, accountants, auditors, that whole side of the industry. So really any job you can think of, there's probably a place for it in mining. So as far as education, it depends. Like engineers, geologists, you do need a university education. You do need a professional designation from a proper association.
Of course.
But on top of trades, I mean, again, if you're looking at electrician, we employ electricians. Mechanics, we employ mechanics. With mining comes some specialties like diamond drilling and coring. So there's all those trades as well. So the education base, again, as a tradesperson, being a juryman, and all those other things that go with it. Basically, like I said, the sky's the limit. If you can think of a position,
Mm-hmm.
most likely we have it somewhere in mining.
So it sounds like mining is an all encompassing industry. So whether you are a university graduate or someone that has a unique skill in a particular trade, there will be an opportunity for you there.
Absolutely. And we do, being that this is a podcast for entrepreneurs, there is a lot of people who start in mining and
Mhm.
then go out and start their own businesses. There's a woman who's developed some technology for underground mapping. If you haven't heard of the company called Cover Gals, they're a specialized organization that provides women with women-made PPE, personal
Yes.
protective equipment. Alicia Woods, she started that company. She got her start in mining, and now she owns that company. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity within the space. That's for sure.
Oh, that's incredible to hear. Women being successful from past experiences and building on to that and becoming independently owned and operated with their own businesses. That's very encouraging. So you mentioned a little bit about not knowing a lot of the mining industry in your, say, high school years. So if you had an opportunity to speak to the education minister in your province, what advice would you give him or her to perhaps change the curriculum to ensure that mining is introduced as a viable career, or even also starting a business or becoming an entrepreneur in the mining industry?
Yeah, it's interesting how, yeah, like I said, mining is such an industry in Canada,
Mhm.
yet you don't see it in those kind of early years. We do, within the education system, you're hearing a lot more about STEM, kind of the science, technology, engineering
Right.
side of things, especially for young women and targeting them. But, mining in general is still not a thing. So it is, and I say it's almost starting even earlier. So my kids are in elementary school and even hitting them. So when you talk about, occupations for elementary kids,
Mhm.
it's the services, right? So they want to be police officers and firefighters and all those other things. So it's kind of like early attention, early introduction of some of these things and what could be.
Mhm.
I know there's different companies that, have children's books that are targeting mining and stuff. Actually, within Women in Mining Canada, every now and then we send an email to Mattel because we've designed a mining Barbie. Barbie's had all sorts of occupations, but she hasn't been a miner yet. So we actually have like a draft design of it. So yeah, if any of the listeners know of any contacts in Mattel, we've been trying to reach out to them. But it's those types of things, some of these physical things that are just not in our day-to-day lives or in our
Yes.
upbringing and in our society. A lot of people get into mining because their family, because they're in those mining towns, they know about it already. And like
Of course.
myself, like I knew about oil and gas because my family's in oil and gas, but I didn't know about mining until the companies reach out and they have those trade fairs and everything else. But you're right, the government just doesn't give that early recognition
No, they don't.
to to this industry that is so important to Canada.
It is. It's actually a lifeline for our country, and it's very important to be able to be connected. That there's severe shortages in all industries right now, and in order for us to enjoy all the comforts that we have on a day-to-day basis, we need to ensure that there are enough people in the mining industry so that they can keep doing what they're doing, so we continue enjoying our lives the way we have it. Those are great, great points. Now, as a mother, say, of young daughters, what could they do to encourage their daughters to perhaps think about a career in mining?
I think it's talking about, I guess I kind of look at my upbringing where there wasn't talk about women specific roles versus
Mm-hmm.
male specific roles, right? When you talk about inventors or yeah, entrepreneurs or geologists or engineers or anything, you take gender kind of out of the equation, right? And you start discussing these things like this is an opportunity, not that hey, have you ever considered, a role in engineering? It's mostly for men, but you could do it too, right?
Of
Nothing
course.
like that. It's basically finding where everybody's interested. Everybody's different.
Hmm.
If women are starting to lean towards trades, it's not about discouraging that or saying, oh, that's going to be really hard because it's male dominated. It's like, no, like, yes, that does fit your personality. I think you'll be really good at that. And kind of pursuing that further, it's taking gender completely off the table. Like, as of myself and my sister, we're both scientists, and we were kind of raised in not thinking in terms of gender, right? Like, I didn't even really realize I was entering like, I always knew I was entering a male dominated industry, but
Okay.
it wasn't really something that clicked until I was actually in it. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and those are really good points that you bring up, simply because, we have to stop putting labels that, men can do only these things, women can only do these things. No, you're able bodied. Everybody's welcome to join that aspect in the industries. But the other thing that I noticed is I love history. And so if you go back to our world wars, when our men were all drafted to go overseas to fight the wars, what happened? Did Canada just stop functioning? No, all women were called to go out and support the efforts. The men that were related to them, they could have been dads, brothers, husbands, and they left the household because they were normally just women who stayed at home, took care of the family, and they started becoming mechanics. They worked on assembly lines. They were air traffic wardens. So if we showed throughout the world wars that we're capable of doing that, I think we have to draw back on our history and reteach that to the younger generations, especially in elementary. Well, yeah, I saw a lady as an electrician, or I saw her being a machine operator. And that's when you're going to start shattering these misconceptions that, it's a men only club or a female only club. Because I kind of find it very interesting if you think about it, a lot of our top chefs, let's take Gordon Ramsay, he's male. So when we always think, oh, well, cooking, the kitchen is supposed to be a female role. No, it's not true. He's an amazing chef, and he's a male. We have a lot of people in the personal care, like personal service workers, who are male, and it's in the caregiving. So if men are allowed to supposedly transition into our traditional roles that were, just geared for women, then why can't women have that freedom as well? And I think those are important things that we need to discuss and get it out there. And the sooner we start with the younger generation, the better that they're going to grow up with that idea, just like you and your sister, not seeing really any boundaries. And hey, I'm interested in it. I want to do it. And I think I can do a good job with it. So I want to turn to now finding a little bit more about Cameco Corporation. It's new for me. And I want to know how the company contributes to the global effort to achieve clean, emissions-free nuclear power.
Oh, absolutely. So in 2022, Cameco was ranked the second largest uranium producer in the world. And all that uranium, or the vast majority of it, actually comes from northern Saskatchewan, which is where my operation is based.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the largest global producers of uranium fuel for nuclear energy, and the world's largest 100% publicly traded uranium producer as well. And currently, Cameco's uranium and nuclear fuel products power 1 in every 8 Canadian homes. So they already play like a major role, and a lot of people don't even know that. As far as nuclear power itself, it is clean, reliable, affordable baseload power that can complement renewable resources that we already have in this country as well.
Yes.
Yes. So the net zero carbon targets are turning attention to a triple challenge, right? First, it is to lift the 1/3 of the global population of every energy poverty by growing clean and reliable baseload electricity. Secondly, is to replace 85% of the current global electricity grids that run on carbon emission sources and thermal power with a clean, reliable alternative. And finally is to grow global power grids by electrifying industries such as private and commercial transportation, home and industrial heating, largely powered with carbon emitting sources of thermal energy today. There's also been a little bit of a transition, focusing a lot more on Cameco and Canadian uranium with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and a lot more countries kind of looking for Western sources for their energy security, basically. So we've been getting a lot more attention than we ever have been. And yeah, proud to be part of the kind of strive towards clean energy and Canadian clean energy for sure.
Well, that's amazing to hear. It's very encouraging for the upcoming generations that Cameco is doing their share in being environmentally responsible. I'd love to take the time now to dive deeper into your own career as chief geologist. What does your role entail on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I guess on a day-to-day, it changes every day. As a
Which is a nice
geologist,
thing, right?
it is a
Not
nice
static.
thing. Absolutely. I guess geology, I'll talk about what our department does kind of overall for the company. So mine geology department, basically we're in charge of the reserve and resource for this operation. Based in layman's terms, we handle the ore material and we're in charge of that. So we're in charge of finding it. We have diamond drills that drill holes, a little bit different than what you think of as a drill, where you're clearing out material. The coring process, you're actually drilling with a drill that takes out the core. From there, we're logging it. We're collecting the data off of it, not just physical data like our lithologies and our alteration, but also sending them for sample, collecting our chemical information as well. Basically collecting all of that data. And then from there, we design the ore bodies. So we have our 3D software that makes the shape. We run reserve estimations on it. So we put it to numbers, how many tons, pounds, and grade that this is going to be. From there, we kind of hand it over to engineering and they develop a plan for extraction. And this is actually over the course of several years now, right?
Yes.
So from there too, and then as soon as they take it out of the ground, then it kind of comes back into our hands for tracking. So again, we are monitoring how much is coming out, where it's going, where we're storing it underground. And then again, when it gets to the mill and it starts processing, it's kind of out of our hands again. But at the same time, geology tracks all the numbers kind of site-wide for this material. And once it does get to mill and it processes, even those numbers come back to us and we have to kind of reconcile and balance it a bit. So, and again, this is the course of multiple years between finding something and actually taking it to market. So currently right now on site, we're drilling off kind of the next generation of production, as well as we're, blasting and mucking several different stopes and monitoring that material and sending it to kind of market. So as the chief, it's basically the quality control of that. So I'm responsible for those numbers, making sure everything is up to spec.
Wow.
Because we are a publicly traded company, we are under scrutiny to make sure that those numbers are correct. And that when we get to the reporting stage, that, I'm the qualified person that kind of puts my stamp. Same thing every month. Numbers don't go out until my stamp goes on it. Right. So that's basically the material handling part of it. And then as a bonus for the chief geologist, there's the team I have to take care of. So I'm also part of developing them and making sure that their careers are on track and providing them opportunities for growth as well. And all of this is just one little cog in the overall system of this operation. We have to deal with all the other departments and make sure things are running smoothly. We're not the only ones here that have priorities, and making sure all the pieces fit properly. And then the operation itself is also just one other cog in all of Cameco. And are we doing what we say that we're supposed to be doing? So that in a nutshell is kind of what we do.
Well, you weren't kidding. You have a lot of variety, and every day is going to be like a moving target. And I am just blown away with the tremendous amount of responsibility you have. That's a big chip that you have on your shoulder to carry. And, kudos to you for undertaking all those responsibilities. And the other thing is just talking to you, you've already shattered my misperceptions of Saskatchewan as a province. Okay, what we learned in geography, grade 10 geography, well, Saskatchewan only has under 1 million people in population, and it's primarily grows grain. And now that you're telling me, it's the northern part is with mining. It's news to me, and I'm sure it's going to be educational for all our listeners that are tuning in at the moment. So I appreciate all the insight you've been able to share so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, mining, Saskatchewan actually has oil and gas. It has diamond mining. It has gold mining. We have some rare earth elements, and yeah, all Canadian uranium comes from northern Saskatchewan. And part of working up in the north, as well as Canada is the top employer in Canada in mining for the Indigenous. Currently, our operations do stand at 50% Indigenous employees.
That's fantastic. I think it's time for us to rewrite the curriculum in Ontario, because a lot of this important information about our country, something to be proud of, is not being properly transmitted to our younger generations. So that's a point that has to be taken up with our education minister. Part of O's mission is to help women tap into their potential and overcome challenges. Can you share some of the challenges you've encountered throughout your career in this traditionally male-dominated field, and how were you able to overcome them?
Absolutely. As I kind of mentioned before, I've been very fortunate in my career, and I haven't really come across many barriers. At the same time, it's just having a conversation with another woman, and we're kind of wondering if maybe our standards were lowered over time about what we tolerate versus what actually happens. Something I need to maybe self-reflect a little bit more. Otherwise, definitely had a great career. A couple of hiccups and bumps along the road. And one of the barriers I did have was associated with parenthood and becoming a mother and coming back into the workforce. Okay. This was over 10 years ago, and usually I don't tell stories that old, because I feel like we have moved forward as an industry. But having, seen the current state, and actually just recently welcoming back a female worker who started a family as well, this industry isn't as far as we'd like to think it is when it comes to that. So basically, my personal story, I'll tell the story first and kind of how it relates.
Sure. I love that.
So absolutely. So when I was first pregnant on the mine site, everything was good. And, I went on maternity leave. Everybody thought I wasn't going to come back, probably because, again, there was other women who gotten pregnant and then never came back, right? But for me, I'm a planner. That was always part of the plan, unless there was some really extraordinary circumstances for me not to come back. That was always the family plan, right? And why would I spend all that time at university just to do 4 years, get my professional designation, which is my PGO, which requires 4 years of industry experience before I'm even a professional geologist on top of the education, to just be like, I'm done with this, right? So I'm on maternity leave, and I can't sit still. I'm just one of those people. So I'm even taking courses, some lunch and learns at the university. I took a public speaking course and different things like that. And I'm ready to come back into the industry. I took my full mat leave a couple of months before I'm coming back. My supervisor calls me up and they're like, okay, let's talk about the plan for your return. I'm like, excellent. Okay, this is my thoughts. And he's like, well, I already have a plan for you.
Okay.
And we're gonna ease you in, right? And I'm like, okay, well, what, describe to me what's eased in. He's like, yeah, so it's certain things, certain tasks and responsibilities I had before I left. I wouldn't have those anymore, and I would be starting what we call as the beat geologist. So when I was a junior, for logging and underground mapping, we would start back with that. And I was kind of hesitant, because I'm like, well, if you want to pay me as a PGO to do the beat geology work, I mean, that's your decision. I don't think that's necessary. But then he said, well, we have some new people coming in and you'll be training and stuff on the night shift and on the day shift. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that sounds actually a lot better too. I like training other people. Yeah, we can go with that.
So far, and so
Yeah. And I'm like, how long do you think this is going to last? He's like, well, we'll see, we'll ease you into it. I'm like,
Mm.
Okay, well, again, I'm not sure. So what ended up being, so me and his wife ended up being pregnant around the same time. So it kind of started looking like he was using his wife as an analog on how to treat me, because
Oh,
really supervisors don't get training on how to deal with
no,
pregnant workers in this
unfortunately
industry.
not.
Yeah.
But
So
that's just a common complaint in all the industries, right?
and that's
There's
exactly
no
it.
prescribed manual on how to deal with it, and that's why we're here having this discussion today. When we need to get the word out regarding how we can help women in that situation, because it's an inevitable situation that we're all going to find ourselves in. Right? It's a stage of life, and it's important that it gets addressed right now.
Absolutely. So yeah, my experience coming back to work, so I was on that for a while, and then I found for the first time ever, I was unhappy with what I was doing. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
being challenged. That was basically, it boiled down to that. My mind wasn't being challenged with new things. And even when I discuss this, I, I won't shut down. I will speak up. I had several meetings with him saying like, this is not what I want. He's like, oh, trust me, there's a plan. I'm like, no, I'm trying to tell you, this is not what I want. You're not listening to me. And I think it was that part of not being listened to that
Mm-hmm.
really, for the first time ever, I was looking for another job. Now it happened that my supervisor ended up leaving for personal health issues. Unfortunately
Okay.
for him. And the person who stepped in, I think day one, kind of came to my office, is like, Melissa, I know you want to be eased into everything, but we really need you back in your old position. And I had to stop him. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I never said I wanted to be eased in. I am more than happy. In fact, on my spare time, because night shift, you get a lot of spare time. I've been already working on some of the stuff because I just needed to occupy my mind. So I'm already ahead of the game in that regard. And it turned out, and then I stayed, I was happy again. I was getting opportunities again. I moved up the ladder within, and yeah, everything was going good. So, like I said, this was an old example, but it still happens because as somebody who's welcomed a person coming back from maternity leave,
Mm-hmm.
my training was like, just do it. Wasn't quite like that. Like do what feels right. But like, we trust that you'll know what to do. And it's just like, just make sure that they're taken care of, right? I'm like, well, that's not training. But it is something, and again, you're kind of touching on it. It's not something that happens so often, but it does happen often. We haven't really talked about the statistics of women in this industry, but I don't even know what it was when I started 15 years ago. I think I was starting to pay attention around 10 years ago. So 10 years ago it was about 14%, and that's across the industry. So I was talking about, administrative offices and all that stuff. So you can imagine how that number is at an operation. So
Mm-hmm.
14% 10 years ago, we were actually building up really well right before COVID. I think right before COVID, we might have actually hit somewhere around 19%. And then COVID came, knocked that number right down to, I think it was about 14% again.
I went back
And
down.
and we're sitting at about 16%. So you
Okay.
think of that number, you think of, let's say, an operation has 200 people, that's under 30 of us are women, and how many women are going to get pregnant? One or two at a time at most,
Mm-hmm.
because of where all these women are going to be in their life cycle, right?
Yes.
And so the companies haven't clued in yet that this is not going away. Sure, it's something special for the minority that's in this industry, but it
Mm-hmm.
still happens. We have a big retention and recruitment issue in this industry, and little things like that, like actually taking the time, like, and you don't have to give it to all supervisors. All of a sudden there's a supervisor with a pregnant worker, they go through the specialized training, right? And part of it is, again, everybody's different. I didn't want to be treated the same way as
Mm-hmm.
another person.
Right.
It's all about the listening, right? And so that was one of the barriers I had to get through, was just the
That's
way I was
huge.
treated. All of a sudden, for
Yes.
the first time, I did feel like a woman in this industry. The whole time,
Right.
I'm just a geologist in this industry, and then for the first time, I'm being treated as a woman in this industry with a very special problem, right? It's not a problem, but you know, It's just
Yeah,
one of
and
the,
and those are very valid points, and I think two major takeaways for our community is A, you need to self advocate, just like you did so, and the second thing is when you're self advocating, you have to stress the fact that every situation is unique. And you have a different role at the company, and some people might say, okay, maybe Melissa can handle the full time aspects of it, and maybe someone else might be able to say, well, I'm not ready to go back full time, maybe my baby needs more of me time, so I'll ease in and gradually come back. But perhaps having different points to check in and say, you know what, things are going a little better. Maybe I can increase my responsibilities, and that way there's a happy medium between the employer as well as the employee. And this is one issue that's got to be addressed industry wide, not only mining, but construction, manufacturing, the same thing. And entrepreneurship, we have it a little easier in one aspect where our hours are flexible. For myself, I have 4 adult children at the moment, but I would work from home, and if I did go into the office, I was home when they were home. So I was able to put them on the bus in the morning and then be home at night when they got off the bus. So that also translated to maybe evenings where I had to work a little later when they were in bed. But I had that flexibility. It's not that I had to report to anybody and schedule things. So it was easier in that aspect now that I hear how you had to deal with that. So hopefully the message does get out there, and then our listeners do keep that in mind when their time comes at that stage of life. And I appreciate, again, sharing such a personal story with us. Now, we mentioned earlier in the interview that you are the chair of Women in Mining Canada. So can you tell us a little bit more about the organization and its mission?
absolutely. So, Women in Mining Canada is kind of a national organization. Our mission is to elevate, empower, and educate women and the industry, kind of coast to coast to coast, um, as well as provide companies with different types of literature. Over the years, we've had publications on this journey towards equity, diversity, inclusion, and ultimately belonging,
Mm-hmm.
right? And overall encompassing inclusive culture. Um, there's a bit of a misconception with Women in Mining. We have so many chapters across this province. We're all actually separate organizations. We do have a network. We do keep
Mm-hmm.
in communications, but a lot of times people think that the chapters are under our umbrella. They're not. We just deal with kind of the national stuff. So we talk a lot more we do a lot more behind the scenes. So we do have conversations with the government. We do have conversations with other kind of global organizations. We currently have a partnership with MIHR, which is developing EDI courses
Mm-hmm.
and documents for companies who are also on this journey and is committed to inclusive culture. We're kind of the industry experts for that, for those documents. So a lot of things that we don't necessarily publicize and things like that. We also deal with some international organizations. There's a lot of WIM globally in many different stages of their development as well. Over the years, we have started different WIM organizations abroad
Mm-hmm.
and are currently in conversations with some that want to get started. One of the things we do that's very visual are our Trailblazer Awards that we have every year around a conference. It's our PDAC conference over in Toronto. We've had our event's called Mining for Diversity, and that's where we showcase kind of our Trailblazer winners. We have 5 awards. We have the Trailblazer, the
That's great.
Indigenous Trailblazer, the Student Trailblazer, the Student Indigenous Trailblazer, and the Rick Hudson Mentorship Award. And all of these are to highlight people who are really breaking ground in this industry and doing that, empowering, elevate, and educating women throughout. Our board of directors too is coast to coast. We have very good representation these days, all over the place, as well as we have a very good like volunteer base that's also kind of coast to coast. So that's basically kind of us in a nutshell. We're really here, we're a not-for-profit, and we're here to help companies on their journey any way we can through those kind of different partnerships that we have with different like-minded organizations.
Okay, that's great. So if any of our listeners want to help or contribute, how could they get involved?
So they can come to our website and kind of check us out. It's wimcanada.org.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of look at past trailblazers. We have kind of a learning platform as well. We have some things that are just for our members, like some courses and different learning events with some of our partners that you would get invited with. And if you're looking to volunteer, there's also a link on there to get in touch with the person who sets up and interviews kind of volunteers and give you more information about how you can get involved. And that's for Canada. Like I said, all the chapters, if you're like in Ontario, you're thinking about getting into mining or you are in mining, there's a bunch of different ones all over the place. WIM-BC is getting back up and going. COVID kind of hurt them a little bit, and we're helping them get back on their feet. And there's a lot of mining in British Columbia. You just got to look. We have the chapters all on our website too. So if all of a sudden you didn't realize you're in Calgary and you didn't realize there's a Women in Mining Calgary, well, there you go, and it'll put you in touch with those. So yeah, there's many different ways of getting involved. The chapters are really good at putting on a lot more like lunch and learns, like a lot more opportunities to kind of network and things like that. But because we're a little bit more national, we don't necessarily put on those kind of networking events. So if networking is kind of your thing, definitely look at the chapters to see what they're up to.
Okay. One thing that you mentioned earlier on was your career involves some rotational work. Do you find that as a pro or a con? Like, how does the work schedule impact your life? And is there any benefits by working shifts?
I see it primarily as a pro. I've done nothing but rotational work my whole career. I tell everybody I've lived in Edmonton my whole career. I've never worked in Alberta. So It's given me the opportunity to do what we call fly in, fly out rotation. I either work 1 week on and then 1 week off, or currently I'm on a 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, which is better for me for travel expenses. It gives me flexibility. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. We work 12-hour days and we're very dedicated to the work. And then when I'm at home, I'm 100% at home. So whatever my kids want, they get. I'm totally accessible. Obviously, there's overlap. I find both for me, it's a career. It's not just a job, right? So all these things are intertwined. Same thing if I'm at work and all of a sudden, yes, the kids need to call me. Well, they can call me. I don't have to wait to be like, oh, I'm at home to deal with this, right? Same thing if there's something going on at work and I'm at home. Oh yeah, I have my laptop. I'll open up and see what's going on and how I can contribute. But it's kind of given me a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of freedom, that sort of thing with technology growing too. Like I said, I have my laptop. When I first started, like you never used to have that. I think sites also banned your personal cell phones on site because they just didn't want you on it. But now communication and technology, I get a hold of my team via cell phone, right?
Yes.
So a lot of things have changed, and it's there's times where, especially during COVID, people were sick and stuff. It's like if you have your laptop on home, you can just work at home. There's a lot of things you have to do here, obviously. Like I can't virtually go underground and check things out, but I can do a lot of my computer stuff wherever I have my computer. And yeah, it's been, I think, a benefit for the kids, and they're used to me on this, and they were actually surprised when they started talking to their friends. What do you mean your mom doesn't travel away for work? What do you mean she's home every day after you come back from school? What do you mean she comes home after 5 o'clock and see? I don't understand that.
That's so important.
Yeah. And when I get vacation, like we get a week off, I get technically 3 weeks off. So we can actually do something viable on my vacation time. I'm not just getting a week off of work. I'm essentially getting 3 weeks. It's my week of vacation plus my normal 2 weeks off. So yeah, we like to go skiing as a family and all sorts of things that we can do. And I don't have to worry about like time crunch and getting it all done in kind of that 1 week span.
And that's really good to hear that you're able to, focus at work, but you also have the flexibility on being a real mom. And you can help your kids when they need to be helped or when they need to be supported. You're there, and that's good to hear, because a lot of jobs out there don't give that kind of flexibility. And kids grow up so quickly. Like, 1 minute you're bringing them home from the hospital, and the next moment they're graduating from school and they're leading their own lives. So it goes by very quickly, and it's important that you're there for the tender years to support and guide them in their journeys. So another thing that's on the mind of a lot of young people these days is the cost of living and inflation. So people tend to select careers not only if they're passionate, but also something that's well paying. Would you consider your job to give you good financial security? Has it been able to provide you with stability and opportunities for personal growth?
Yes, my job has been, for sure. There's a lot of, I'll speak like strictly to geology instead of mining in this instance for my personal experience. There's a lot of investment that goes into your education. Like even for my MBA, there's, a lot of money spent, but getting into the workforce right away and able to, save up, didn't have kids at that time, just was being me and my husband being really smart with our money to begin with. Also, we had the benefits when I entered this industry. It was 2008, right when the financial crisis hit. And I just so happened to be with a company that uranium is a different type of commodity. We sell it in contracts, so you're locked into price, as opposed to some other commodities that are based on your market price, right? So at that time, when other colleagues who had graduated the same time as me were kind of losing their jobs, I wasn't. And I was with Cameco when I first started for that 8 years. It really kind of was an eye opener to what could be, right? So just making sure that things were in place, that we were being smart with our money. And then when eventually the site I was at went into care and maintenance, it was around the time I was looking for my MBA. We had saved up quite a bit just in case, but then being with the company for so long and actually being employed gave me the severance package. And it was a very nice severance package that actually paid for my education. So again, kind of reinvesting that and, being able to work different places. And, this industry has ups and downs. It definitely is a roller coaster. So like I said, Cameco at the time was locked in, but, other places I worked down in Washington State for a mine that had a 1-year mine life. So very dependent on the market price of zinc and lead. And when zinc started dropping, you could kind of see the writing on the walls. That place was kind of going down. So, places shut down, places open up, places get bought out. There is a lot of turbulence in this industry. So you just need to make sure that you are putting money away for your savings, for your future, and making some smart decisions. Working in the US around the time that COVID hit, it just so happens that I was finishing off my MBA and I was just getting off some contract work for another company. So deciding that I'll just focus on school and not kind of pick up a job. And then I graduated my MBA around the end of 2019. So then 2020 was the height of COVID and things were shutting down, finding myself unemployed. And there was always my plan for my 401k in the States was to move it down, put into RSPs, but then that became our income. I just cashed that out, took the hit, totally fine. So I happened to have some things that just really worked out for me, but always having that one step and planning ahead, right? So I've gotten to a point in our lives, in our family situation, where I don't have a mortgage. We're debt free, and
that's impressive.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that.
I know and it did take early commitment. We did have a plan. Like I said before, we're planners. So at this point too, we were like a two income household, and, you know, decided that we're in a good place where we can be a one income household. Every now and then, my husband will take a contract with the work that he does here and there, but we don't rely on his salary at all. And that was
Mm.
always supposed to be the plan, is, you know, for who's the dedicated parent versus who's going to be making the income. This was kind of always going to be the case because we always knew what geology could pay down the road, and
Right.
just needed to be patient and put in the work and kind of make it there. So, um, yeah, definitely, you know, looking back and looking what could have been, I think too, when I went through university, and I didn't say this before, I have a bit of also an untraditional geology degree, because around the time when I was looking, when I was said that engineering is not for me, what could I do? Yeah, taking earth science stuff, but also psychology really
Mm.
fascinated me. So at that point, I was kind of like, what am I going to do, geology or psychology? And I ended up taking the overloading my major in geology so I could get that professional designation, because you need certain courses, as the association tells us.
That's
But
correct.
the reason I went in that direction is because I didn't want to lose all my psychology credit. So I ended up with a minor in psychology instead of the traditional kind of geology degree where you can go and specialize with the university. So, you know, looking at the two things, like at the time, it's like geology, there's a ton of jobs and stuff like that. Psychology, at that time, there wasn't kind of a clear path forward.
Hmm.
So just keeping that as more of a hobby type thing, and picking the career that at the time, looking at how the market's doing, what jobs are out there, where the need is, and just kind of going from there.
Well, you mentioned so many good points there, but the one that really stands out and I think needs to be addressed is financial prudence, simply because the volatility in the market, the economy, especially in your industry, also with our industry too, manufacturing. We have the saying of feast and famine. So during the pandemic, we were one of the few companies that were actually blessed to stay open because we were deemed essential, and that was when we feasted. We worked 7 days a week, double shift, 16 hours a day, because they just couldn't get supplies elsewhere. Nothing was being imported, which was fantastic. And we knew that would be short lived, because afterwards, then the borders open up, and you have to compete with products coming in at lower prices. So that tends to be more of a famine. And what you just said is, in those times, you should put away some money, because it has to go in times where, things may not be looking rosy down the road. Right now, there's a lot of talk of recession and economic instability that's going on worldwide, and Canada is going to be, I believe, hit with a major recession, simply because we have indebted ourselves too much. We haven't saved for a rainy day, and interest rates keep climbing. So, which means if you owe money, then you have to service your debt, and that means, in the bottom line, less money take home that you can put aside and take care of your family needs, your essential needs. So, the other point that comes to mind. You and your husband are similar to myself and my husband. When we were in our youth, we came up with this rationale. Well, we can live life two ways. One way is to play now, pay later, or pay now, play later. So we chose the latter, where we were ultra conservative when we were young and with our children, which has permitted me to have that financial security now as I'm older, 30 years later in my career, where I'm not stressing about market conditions. I'm not stressing about the way the world's changing. I can go about my life and enjoy it, and have been able to pass those important messages to my children, who are now all graduated, working full time, and they're following in the same footsteps. And I think it's important that young people receive that kind of message as well.
Absolutely. No, totally agree with
Hmm.
everything you're saying too. And as you were talking, another thing kind of popped into my head.
Mm.
Um, I've learned too that women, we treat our money very differently as well. We tend to hold on
Yes.
and sit on money without reinvesting it. There's actually another company started by a woman too that Women in Mining Canada is currently partnered with. It's called Untangled Money. And
Oh.
she kind of goes and she's got a couple of apps, but part of the sessions too is teaching you and showing you how a woman's financial cycle is different than a male's, and how we're taught in school, like we're taught the male cycle, but we're not taught things like women are the ones who take care of the elderly family members
Hmm.
and what income goes to that. We're the ones that take time off of work because to start a family and things like that. So our graph looks very different, and it's quite the eye opener. And even with discussions with her, I was kind of thinking, like, I do sit on a lot of cash that, and especially like, I don't know if the GICs are good right now, like, but like at the beginning of the year, like GIC investment was really, really good. And
Yes.
so,
And
yeah,
I got in on that. So
I got
go
into.
true.
So yeah, it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I have all this money that we were saving for vacations that we never went on because of COVID.
Hmm.
Let's throw it in there. And yeah, like different things like that. And so yeah, if anybody who's listening is interested in Untangled Money, I highly recommend that to kind of reach out to them and see all the different stuff
Yeah.
that they're doing
That is so
that's
good.
for women and finances.
And then one thing that people don't know also is all the government programs that are available. We started RESPs for all our kids, so a registered education savings plan, where our kids basically went to school for free, quote unquote, and they didn't have any debt. So they graduated debt free. And mind you, they all had summer jobs as students, and that was their spend money. So when their friends would say things like, "Hey, let's go to the movies," or "Let's go karting," they would go, and then they would figure, "Oh, wow, I'd have to work 5 hours to make the money to go karting or to the movies." And then they think twice. Well, maybe we should have, a movie at home, and then we'll just cook our own food. We'll do a potluck. So it has them thinking in a different way. That you should save your money, as opposed to, as soon as it lands into your bank account, oh, let me go to Starbucks and get a coffee at $7, or let me go out and get a quick burger at McDonald's, and that costs you $15. And then when you figure out it takes you hours, in some cases, if you're making minimum wage, it could take you 8 hours to pay that off, and that's no way to start your life, because you're going to be indebted forever, and you're going to end up being broke in your older age. So that's
Yeah.
something that needs to be addressed, and I'm glad we had that conversation.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear that side of it, because yeah,
Mm.
we also that RESP, I said it right.
Yes,
That has been a great thing.
it's
My
fantastic.
kids, yeah, are in elementary, and we've already gotten to the point where I'm looking at the number because the government matches, and I'm like, we
Hmm.
don't need to put any more in there. It's growing very
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
And so we're already at a point where, yeah, their education's essentially going to be taking care of whatever they decide that they're going to do. But at the same time, we also chose that they will be working during their university, part-time or whatever, because it gives them that responsibility and
So
teaches them that
important.
responsibility. So even though, and they don't know that we have this for their education. So we're trying to kind of embed in them that, yeah, you're going to have to think about these things, and you're going to have to get a good, decent job. When I was going through university, I had a very good job because I ended up going through again, Life Saving Society. So I was a
Hmm.
lifeguard and a swimming instructor, which is probably still one of the highest paying
It's
part-time
it's
jobs.
fantastic for a summer job.
Yeah,
The kids around here do it, and yeah, they have repeat customers every summer.
absolutely. So then,
Mm.
yeah, it's pretty much a staple. Like it's not a job that's going to go away for young people. So we're already thinking of, yeah, investing them in, when they're old enough in that kind of stream, so that when they get to the level of trying to get a job, they can get something like that pays a little bit better, so that, they're starting to learn about this kind of investing in early education for career path forward, right?
It's great. So, thank you so much, Melissa, for taking the time to speak with us today. If you could summarize your career journey and the message you'd like to leave with our listeners, what would it be?
It would be to be adaptable. I mentioned how this industry has ups and downs. Our society has ups and downs. I think COVID has showed that, we need to be adaptable to whatever comes our way. Take opportunities as they come, open yourself up to opportunities, create that network base now, because those opportunities aren't going to come up just sitting around. And I know it's for young listeners, I know that's easy for me to say because I have that network already in place. But it's very important to reach out now and just start kind of building that, going to different conferences, going to different open houses for different things, and just meeting people, because opportunity is not just going to come because you're sitting around. You have to put that effort in.
Absolutely. And that's with whatever choice you decide to go with. So how can our listeners connect with you or any of the organizations you're involved in?
You can find me primarily on LinkedIn as a professional. You're going to, Melissa Ning. And then I do have that PGO MBA kind of at the end there that'll distinguish me from other people. And then Women in Mining Canada, I mentioned wimcanada.org. You can also find us on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. So everyone, if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any lessons and wisdom from successful women making their mark in the world. Be sure to share this episode. It goes a long way towards supporting and uplifting all women. If you'd like to learn more about O and everything we do to empower women, including my personal and professional development courses to upgrade every aspect of your life, whether you want to launch a new business or take the next step in your career, visit us at onlywomenentrepreneurs.com and book your free consultation today. Follow us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Look for Only Women Entrepreneurs to stay up to date on all things O and to connect with a growing community of countless women living their best lives. Thank you for your support, and I'm excited to see you on the next episode. Thanks again, Melissa.
Thank you.